almost as long as the Passion reading, but not quite. If your legs were bothering you. So I want to share a story about something that happened at my diaconate ordination. Father Tony and I are classmates, so it happened at the same time, but God is so funny that he treats us all so individually and so different. So I have a friend who told me that anything you ask for during the Litany of the Saints and that time you lay prostrate on the ground, anything that you ask for from the Lord, he's going to give you at that time. I said, oh, really? Anything I ask for? And she's like, yeah, anything you ask for. So I was like, yes, nice. So I started thinking about all the things I was going to ask the Lord for. And then came the day of our ordination. And during the ritual, we go up and we lay down on the floor, the hard floor of the cathedral, whatever church we're in. And they sing the Litany of the Saints very beautifully. And then started my litany of things I was going to ask the Lord for. And mind you, they were good things. They weren't bad things. I didn't ask him for $1 million, if that's a bad thing. But I was asking him for things like this. I said, Lord, help me to be a good preacher. Lord, help me to be more loving. Lord, help me to be more chaste. And in the clearest voice I have ever heard God speak to me ever, he said to me, shut up. He's very direct with me because I need it. And then he said to me very much more kindly, he said, be quiet. So thanks. And then he said these words to me that I'll never forget. He said to me, he says, am I not enough for you? Am I not enough for you? See, all those things I was asking for were not bad things, and they're all to build up the kingdom of God, hopefully. But everything that the Father has is ours. That question rings in my heart over and over again since that day. Am I not enough for you? But I think this is also the foundational question of the Christian life. Is God enough for us? Or do we continue to look to other things to fill our hearts and to give us peace in our lives? Is God enough, or do we seek to take care of ourselves in other ways? I also think that this is how we end up getting lost as Christians. We look to other things to satisfy us, and they lead us away from this house, the fold, the church, and lead us into our own ways of life. I think that this is what today's gospel is all about. It's about getting lost, but then becoming found again. We have two ways of getting lost, I think, in today's gospel. The first is that we can get lost outside, like the sheep. The sheep who was in the fold then wanders away from the fold and gets lost outside in the wilderness somewhere. And the shepherd has to go find the sheep, put it on his shoulders, and bring it back into the fold. But I think there's a more interesting and kind of harder to grasp way to get lost. And you can also get lost in the fold. And we hear about this in the losing of the coin. The coin wasn't dropped on some path on the way home or on a journey. The coin was lost in the house. The coin was lost maybe in a crack in the floor, and they had to search the house inside to find that coin. Anyone ever got lost in your own house? Raise your hand. Okay, I have before, right? You know, it's pretty sad. But spiritually, this is what happens sometimes to us as Christians. We can either be lost outside of the church. We can say, you know what, this is not for me anymore. I don't believe this. And we leave and we go out and we look like the sons did into a land of dissipation in the ways of our lives. Or maybe we've sat in these seats our entire lives and we've never wandered away, but we feel like we've gotten lost sitting right here. We feel like that coin. I think that this is the two different brothers as well in our gospel today. The younger son is the one who tells his father basically, I wish you were dead. Give me what would come to me when you would have died. And so he split his estate and gave the younger son his portion of it as if he had died. And the younger son took it and left the house. He left the father's house and went away, and he got lost outside the house. But then there's the older brother who's a little bit more elusive, huh? He's the one who gets lost inside the house. He's the one who sees in the Father something he wants, but doesn't also desire the Father for who he is. But I think that's what the two brothers share as well at the end of the day, is that both of the sons wanted what the father could give them, but they didn't really want the father. The father wasn't enough for them. They only wanted what could have come to them. And so when the younger son comes home, the father puts on this beautiful cloak, the ring, the sandals, and throws this beautiful party for him. Because what the father wants is the relationship. What the father wants above all is to know that his children have come home and remain home and are found there as well. But then here comes the older son. He's mad. And I think this is why he's mad. He sees this party, and he's imagining in his mind that since everything that is left is his half of the estate. And he says, your son, not my brother, right? And he's mad that that son who went and already squandered off half of the estate is now squandering off his half. The fatted calf was slaughtered, and that was his fatted calf. Those were his sandals. That was his ring and his cloak. And now is being given to this younger brother who came home. See, for God, the things don't really matter, the blessings and the things we can or can't receive from the Lord. But what matters to our God, who is the prodigal father, is that we rejoice at the fact that we come home. That rejoice at the fact that there's a place for us to return to. God is willing to give it all up. He'll give up all of the things in order to have you and to have me. One of my favorite lines in all of the gospel today is this: and the celebration began, right? That we have a God who rejoices when a sinner repents and comes home, whether we get lost outside or whether we get lost inside. And I've done both in my life, and maybe you have too. I don't know what your life has looked like. But I've left and gotten lost outside in things. And like St. Paul, we can rely upon our ignorance in that in some way for the Lord's mercy upon us. But the harder, more shameful part, even in my life as a priest, is when I get lost inside. I could be serving the Lord every day in and out as a priest, or maybe we are being faithful as our families, moms and dads and kids, doing what we're supposed to do, but still feel lost, still feel like we don't belong to the Father, and then turning inside into things that draw us away from that relationship. I think what the Lord wants us to hear today is that He's here and He wants to restore that relationship with us. Remember, it's not the sons who came, but it's the Father who went out to them. It's the Father who saw him at a distance and ran to the younger son. And it's the Father who stepped out of the house and went to speak to the older son. It's the Father who can bring us back into that relationship that we're desiring. So today, as we celebrate this feast with the Lamb who was slain for us, know that there's no place that God won't go to bring us back.